So as an overview of this, the USG Complete College Georgia Innovation Grants, many of you may be familiar with them from past years or last year, provide early stage funding and support for institutions to initiate and implement high impact projects aligned with the goals of Complete College Georgia. Those goals of Complete College Georgia you're probably familiar with. You can certainly check our website if you want to know a little bit more about those. But for those who are not totally familiar, we do consider the primary goals to be college readiness, improving access and completion for underserved students, shortening the time to degree, restructuring instructional delivery, transforming remediation. So please contact us or check our CCG site if you would like to have some more details on the Complete College Georgia primary goals. This year, our CCG Innovation Grants in this particular funding stream will be somewhat different than they have been in the past. We're working with the USG STEM initiative to provide new implementation and replication projects that are focused upon science, technology, engineering, and math. So we're focusing on the STEM core courses in particular here in Georgia that lead to improved student learning and achievement. So for those of you who are very familiar with the STEM initiative, the USG STEM initiative, you'll know that it has traditionally focused on 3 goals, and we're going to maintain that in our work on the innovation grants during this cycle. Since 2007, the USG STEM initiative has focused on 3 goals in particular, including STEM disciplines in college, increasing the success and completion rates of college students majoring in a STEM discipline, and increasing the number of qualified K-12 STEM teachers. So this year's CCG Innovation Grants should address one or more of those STEM initiative goals that are listed on this slide. All right, so I'm going to turn over now to Brandy Tate and let her tell us a little bit about the description of the awards, and then we'll take questions after we complete this next section.
Okay, thank you, Robert. So there are 2 types of awards this year, and if any of you are familiar with the innovation grants from last year, you'll be familiar with these categories already. But the 2 award categories are Incubate and Replicate. So the Incubate category is essentially for projects that are new. So these are novel, proposed novel solutions that truly do have the the potential to be impactful. These projects demonstrate a reasonable probability of success, and there should be evidence of impact on student progression, completion of STEM courses and majors. The Replicate category are for projects that are going to be replicating existing successful projects. So these projects that are going to be emulated must have proven high impact for success, and these can be projects that are within the USG, so existing projects. So you might want to look at the innovation grants from last year or the incubator grants from 2013. These can also be projects external to the USG. So if you hear of any existing projects happening at other campuses and other states and other places, you can replicate those as well. We do ask that if you do replicate or do choose to apply for the Replicate Award, that you do provide some evidence of contact with the project that you are replicating. So it can be a letter or a point of contact, some way for us to know that you are indeed in conversation with the project that you are intending to replicate. With the Replicate project, we really are looking for projects that can be scaled across the USG. Okay, so the criteria for consideration, again, if you are familiar with the innovation grants from last year, these criteria are the same, we're essentially looking for projects that are sustainable, transformative, and scalable. So for sustainable, these awards are one-time awards. So we really want to make sure that the projects that are funded can be sustained after the grant period is over. Transformative, so we want to fund projects that have the potential to have a significant impact on a substantial proportion of students, particularly this year in the STEM core courses. So even if it's a project that might be impacting a limited number of students, we want to see the potential for it to be scaled up across, either within the institution itself or across the USG. So we're really looking for high-impact projects. And then scalable. Again, the idea here is, we're funding small-scale projects that can be scaled up and truly be impactful. So in your application, it's important to demonstrate that the proposed project can be scaled. Okay. And for the proposals this year, as was the case last year, we're asking everybody to provide a logic model. So a logic model is a tool typically used in program evaluation to determine the effectiveness of a program. And so the idea here is to connect inputs, typically resources, activities, which are the actions, the output, which are deliverables and products, to the project's short and long-term outcomes. So we really want every proposed project, or everyone proposing a project, to think about how what you put into this project will lead to both the short and long-term outcomes. We imagine that during the course of the project, which will be about a year, that typically you'll probably only achieve the short-term outcomes, but we're asking each person proposing a project to spend some time thinking about the long-term outcomes as well. So quickly, just going to go through this general example that we have here, and this example is also included in the RFP. But the components of a logic model are the input. So these are the resources going into the project. That's number of staff, number of students, any equipment and tools being used, any partners. Activities. The activities are what's occurring during the project, so that's any events that you might hold, any trainings, any courses taught, any professional development, anything along those lines. Outputs are the products that occur as a result of the activities. So that would include any deliverables that you may have, any materials that you've developed, any courses that you've developed. If you're doing an open educational resource, any of those resources would fall into the outputs category. And then the short-term outcomes are the immediate results, long-term are the long-term results. So immediate results you might see during the course of the period of the grant might be impact on course performance, impact on student interventions, and then some of the long-term outcomes that we anticipate will happen beyond the period of the grant would be impact on retention, in this particular case, impact on students in the STEM courses and the STEM majors. And the idea here is really we want everyone to spend some time visualizing and thinking about the theory of change and thinking about what you're putting into the project now and what you anticipate the outcomes to be. So now I'm going to turn it over to us and a little bit more about the proposal and details and the actual awards.
Okay, so like Brittany said, I'm Leslie Ann, and I'm just going to talk to y'all about a few logistics. So for the awards this year, we are going to award in an amount up to $25,000. So it can be less than that, but it can't be any more than that. As far as the format of your proposal, we don't really have any requirements as far as the type of font you use or how big or small it is or double space. We just want to make sure that it's within 6 pages, and that does not include a cover page or your appendix. So we do want to make sure that they're all submitted as Word documents, no PDF. And as far as the timeline goes, proposals are due no later than 5 o'clock on June 19th, and you can send those to innovation@usg.edu. And we're expecting an announcement of the grantees around mid-July. And let's see. And the awards are going to be successful applications to all USG, are going to be made available to all USG institutions on our website, completega.org. And awardees will benefit from our support and guidance throughout the grant period. So we're looking forward to hearing and your ideas.
So we're going to ask that if you have any questions to please type in the chat box. We're keeping everyone muted since there are a lot of folks on the line today. So if you have any questions about what we've just discussed or about the RFP in general, about the process, please go ahead and type them in the chat box.
One thing that I know we need to quickly go over again to answer a few questions from all right, our prioritized project areas.
There we go.
So it should be made understood that projects will be considered if they include new models for learning or high-impact strategies. Those are critical. So for new models for learning, some examples of those, these are not exhaustive. You might have others that you wish to use, but some examples of those are undergraduate research opportunities, competency-based education opportunities, flipped classrooms and other innovative delivery models, new adapted STEM courses, flexible pathways, open educational resources. Those are some examples for you of new models, and that is one of the primary considerations for these STEM innovation grants. Another one would be high-impact strategies, and that would be STEM pathways, meta majors, structured scheduling, supplemental instruction, peer mentoring, study groups, and other examples. Those are simply ones for you to consider. So new models for learning or high-impact strategies are also critical features of these innovation grants, and we require you to address one or both of those in your proposal.
Okay, so we've gotten a number of questions in the chat box. Thank you guys for sending those in. We want to start with Okay, so the first question was, for the Incubate projects, do we need a proposed evidence of impact gathering approach or existing data that provides evidence of impact?
So for the, not for replication, you said Incubate?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. So you're referring to the transformative model. Certainly data that shows, that indicates the model will be impactful, will be given a great deal of weight. We want to see as much data as possible. If you cannot show, existing data, then evidence of impact gathering, approach is something we would certainly consider. Obviously, actual data to support the model would be more powerful. We did have a question about how many words are anticipated. I'm not going to give an exact number there because that will depend. We don't know whether everyone who's proposing will ask for the full $25,000 amount or if they'll ask for less. So we know, for example, to give you a round idea, we are not going to be doing 20 of these. It'll be something closer to 10 as a round idea, but we don't know how many because we don't know how much there will be in terms of funding once we get the total award amounts requested.
And we've gotten several questions about the webinar being made available at a later time, and we are recording it right now, and we'll also send out the presentation to everyone that signed up for the webinar today, and then also to the CCG and STEM listservs. And we can also post that to our completega.org website.
Time frame. The time frame to use the funds is 1 year. From the time that, well, basically, yes, a year from the award. So if you have a project, we have a question here, do you fund the projects that were funded last year, which will be replicated at other institutions? The short answer to this one is a project from last year that is being replicated could be funded as a replication project, if that makes sense. You would need, of course, obviously, to show that it's being used in a new context, it's being used in a new approach. It would have to show something to kind of prove that you're doing scalable work on the project. But yes, something that was previously funded could be replicated.
We had a question about accessing previously funded grant proposals, and you can look at those on the completegA.org website. I think that link is completegA.org/grants.
That's right.
And you can see the grants that were awarded starting in
2013.
2013.
Grants.php.
Okay. completegA.org/grants.php.
Should be there by year and by category.
Yeah. Okay.
This is an interesting question. I know that you said STEM core courses, but can they be for another subject that could be relatable later to STEM courses? As an example, I have an English faculty member that is suggesting a model for her area that its efficacy could be proven, could be applicable to the STEM courses. Given this is STEM initiative funding, it probably would be, I'm not saying it's impossible, it would be difficult to compete in that sense, I would suspect, but I can't give the final word. One important thing to note here is that we're doing this work in collaboration with the USG STEM Initiative, and Sheila Jones, who's the Senior Executive Director here at the USG OEAS, is our partner, and she heads the project that's the source of the funding. So I definitely want to consult with her on a question like this. She's not able to be with us here today. I think that would be difficult to prove, but if it's a STEAM project, I would like to hear more about it before we gave a definitive answer.
And I'll just jump in really quickly to say that this year we funded a project that focused, it was a project that focused on STEM-centric English courses. So I think if you know, there's a project that falls along those lines, if it ties back to STEM in some way, it could be funded. But there does need to be that connection.
To add on to that too, if you're going back and looking at the other proposals on the website, just keep in mind that we didn't have the tie to the STEM initiative back then. So just, you know, have that in the back of your head when you're looking at those proposals, that they weren't all, you know, in that kind of focus.
And that's why I answered the way I did, because I think, you know, previously we were funding in a broader sense. This year we're doing working with the STEM initiative specifically. So I don't think it's anything to be ruled out. The tie needs to be proven very closely. There's a question here, what may the funds be used for? Well, typically they're used for staff time. They have been used for purchases of software and necessary tools. They've been used in particular instances for dissemination where necessary at the end of the project. They're really, I can't see funding of large-scale equipment, but the funds in general are relatively broad, so there are not a great many restrictions upon them.
We do ask, though, that you avoid, if you can, asking for funds for overhead costs and overhead flat rate. Again, tying back to the idea that these projects are sustainable, we do want to make sure that they can continue after the grant period ends. So we ask that you, if you can, try to avoid requesting funds for those costs.
Those were just the general category.
Okay.
So we have another question. Can you discuss the limitation of applications per institution? So the way that works is that an institution can submit an incubate and a replicate proposal. Can't do two of one kind.
And what about institutions that may be working together collaboratively? How would that?
Well, if they're working together collaboratively, then it's best to designate one as the primary. It's going to have to go through the office of one of the institutions anyway to be signed. So we would consider that to be a grant from that institution.
We also had a question about, are there final reports of previously funded projects available for review? And we have those on the,
So there's a list on the website, but those can be linked.
but we can link those to the website if they're not already there. We'll double check on that for you guys.
And that's just, when you say final reports, do you mean evaluation reports?
It just, for whoever asked that question, were you referring to an evaluation report, or, I don't know if they're...
We don't actually require, as well, many funded projects require a definitive final report. We don't have that requirement in the same way.
Yes.
To indicate the success of the activity evaluation, yes. So evaluation report, yes, we do have those available.
But only for 2013. We're in the process of wrapping up the final reports for this year's grants, so those will not be available yet, but the 2013 grant evaluation reports are available. Yeah.
We have a question here that is asking whether the effect of music on general wellness, such as high blood pressure, stress, mental wellness, et cetera, would be considered. So in effect, something that would be innovative in the sense that it's not typically a STEM topic, the use of music. So interdisciplinary projects are not excluded here. As I said, again, this gets into an area where I would definitely like to have our partner who is heading the STEM initiative to be here to help answer this question definitively. If you would like, you can send an email to me, robert.todd@usg.edu, and I'll be glad to speak with Sheila Jones and discuss it. My sense would be, as long as it ties into STEM core courses and could have a broad impact, that it could definitely be considered. Yeah, and I think, and Brandy Tate mentioned something I think that's very helpful. If you have very specific project questions, you're certainly welcome just to email us. You have Leslie Ann Fenton's email at the end of these slides. And I also just gave you mine, robert.todd@usg.edu, and we'll definitely get to those questions for you. There's another question here. Are health science disciplines considered STEM disciplines for the purposes of this competition? If they involve STEM core courses, then they would be applicable. If they're not part of STEM core courses, then they would not be.
Define STEM core courses.
For STEM majors, too.
Yeah.
You want to address the question about the multi-institutional?
Yeah, and one question we've had that we definitely want to discuss is, someone asked whether collaborations or multi-institutional proposals would be considered. And the answer to that is yes. Actually, an effort by more than one institution would be welcome because we want to see collaboration. We want to see alliances between those who are working with the STEM initiative funding. Leslie Ann.
Okay. If you want further details or if you have any other project-specific questions, you can email me. My email is leslie.fenton@usg.edu, and that's spelled LESLEY.FENTON@usg.edu.
And I believe it's also on the last slide here in the webinar, correct?
I don't think
Or is that the innovation address? Yeah. And you can also, that innovation address, I misspoke earlier,
Yeah.
That's actually the innovation address on the last slide of the last contact slide of the webinar. That one will also come to us. So you can also email us at that address, which is innovation@usg.edu, and probably easier to remember than all these names.
Okay. Any other questions?
Let's see, I think there may be another one. How should a campus coordinate submissions if multiple faculty from the same school wish to apply? Let's just, if that is multiple faculty wish to apply for the same, like, incubate effort or the same replicate effort, then they would need to coordinate among themselves. And you'll see in the RFP that we've listed the signature from the university that needs to be there for consideration. So it'd be best to coordinate that. Now, if one wants to do a replicate and one wants to do an incubate, obviously, still a good idea to coordinate, even if you have two, one in each category coming from your institution. They all will need to go through the same office, though, as you'll see in the RFP, so that basically limits multiple submissions, or at least it should, beyond the amount that we have allowed.
We also had a question about the budget, if it's supposed to be in the appendix or in the proposal itself, and the budget is actually part of the 6-page proposal limit, to make sure that it's not in your appendix. And we also had a comment. Did you address that?
Yeah, we just see a question here, and this is an excellent question, really. Faculty at large in a large campus may not know that other faculty are applying, and that's part of the reason that we stated in the RFP that the proposal must be submitted under the Vice President for Academic Affairs signature. So that's our control there. We're hoping that the Office of the Vice President for Academic Affairs will realize that there's more than one proposal. My suggestion to you would be to contact the VPAA's office in advance and make certain that you're not doing multiple applications from one institute.
And be sure, I mean, this goes without saying, but be sure to do that well in advance of the June 19th deadline. So, yep.
So if I don't see any more questions here, we don't want to take up more of your time. You've got the innovation@usg.edu email. Certainly let us know if you have any further questions. I want to thank Brandy Tate, Jonathan Hull, Leslie Fenton here today making this webinar happen. Also Sheila Jones, who is our partner with the USG STEM initiative. We're looking forward to a good set of proposals and for the work that will start up soon afterwards. So I want to thank you, and please get in touch with us